The exhibition, of course, is the Golden Age of Photojournalism. What was the Golden Age and how golden was it?
Well, certainly for freelancers, professional freelancers, quite competitive. And talking to competition, I mean, nowadays you hear all these ugly stories about the paparazzi and the terrible things they get up to and what they do. I'm sure in my time, everything was just as competitive, but it wasn't for money. It was to get a better picture than the other guy. Very competitive. Golden era, well, it was for me, yes, that's the time that I enjoyed most.
In your younger years, when you were doing a lot of press work, much of it was concerned with football. And you saw some of the legends of the 1950s. There's one picture over there that I absolutely love. It's Willie Bould, the late Willie Bould of Hearts at full stretch. What can you tell me about that amazing picture?
Nowadays there'd be 3 or 4 frames before that and then 3 or 4 after it because somebody would just be sitting with finger on the trigger. But to look at that, I'm very proud of it. Probably 500th of a second, and that absolute one pinpoint instant with one big plate camera that you could hardly lift when it was cold. No, I'm glad you've noticed that, you spotted that.
You're nursing your baby in your lap there, your iconic Rolleiflex. Wonderful camera, expensive camera, very, very distinctive of that period, the 50s, 60s, 70s. But you started off life taking pictures on almost literally a Mickey Mouse camera.
I told you that, yeah. Mickey Mouse, in that it came for 4 tokens from the Mickey Mouse comic and 6pence. That was the cost of it. It must have been, well, obviously pre-war. Yeah. Just this lovely feeling, it's still there, and this is so much a part of me. I feel it just now. I mean, I could obviously load a film with my eyes shut and take a film out again with my eyes shut. I could set the shutter speeds. Focus not quite with your eyes shut, but no, it was such a it was such a big step forward from the old single plate camera. And what a delight it was to use this. The single plate cameras it needed skills in judging the distance for focus. For example, I mean, you're about 5.5 feet, not quite 6 feet from me just now. I bet you, I'm 9 feet from the picture on the wall there. I used to practice my distances by, if you're walking down the street, that lamppost, that'll be 6 yards away, and you developed a yard-long step, in fact, and you very soon got to know the distance, which was quite important, because you had no rangefinder or anything. We made prints from the negatives, and these then went distributed to the daily papers by rail. Each of the newspapers had a contract with British Rail, and they supplied envelopes which were recognised by the guards on the trains. You put your picture in this, handed it to the guard, it went to Glasgow, Edinburgh, Aberdeen or wherever, and they would have a runner at the other end to pick this up from the guard and carry it on to the office. Very rarely did the newspapers come on and say, will you cover this, will you cover that? You did it and sent it to them speculatively, and you sent the same picture to everybody, and that's how it worked. Very rarely was there a commission from any of the newspapers. So it's quite different. I mean, that started to sway the other way probably in the 80s, late 70s, 80s, and then the new picture desk would come in and say, oh, could you cover this or that? And in that case, of course, it was done exclusively for the person who had, because they were then hiring you. You would be paid for that whether they used it or not. And the other way, the speculative business, you sent it. If they didn't use it, you didn't get paid. Yeah. There's a letter came to my mother, or in fact, if I remember correctly, I was asked, what are you going to do when you leave school? A letter was sent to my mother inviting her to take me, 14-year-old by the hand almost, down to visit Mr. McLaren at Star Photos, who had been up to the school looking for somebody that might be suitable to train as a press photographer. Now, how the rector ever got into his mind that I might train as a press photographer, I don't know, but that's how it started.
How did your career progress thereafter?
Well, Star Photos at that time were, I would say, probably the biggest agency, certainly in Scotland, the biggest outside Glasgow, and had been, well, these were just after the war years where I started, but pre-war they certainly had been the biggest in Scotland, there's no doubt, and they covered the whole of Scotland. That's right, the byline was something to which you aspired perhaps, and I remember when I worked with the Daily Mail in the 50s, if you got a picture with a byline, you got a bonus, you got maybe another quid or something on your pay. But no, it's only, again, in recent times, or since the Copyright Act 1988 or something, where bylines, I think, in fact, I think by law you can still insist on having it, although most of the newspapers don't.
Now, Louis Flood, we're absolutely surrounded by photographs that are inspiring, they're human, they're by and large very, very happy. But towards the end of your long, long career, there was immense sadness in the events of Dunblane. Tell me what you remember of that terrible day.
Oh, that was a really chilling one, I think, as I describe it. There's two chilling memories in my career, as you call it. Dunblane, we got a call, I think it was probably about 10:30 in the morning from, can't remember which paper it was first, a report, a gunman at the school at Dunblane. And by the time I got to Dunblane, well, I was only half an hour away, and parked the car near where the school was, because I knew you wouldn't be allowed anywhere near it. Parked the car and started going up the road. But the awful thing, the saddest thing, old grannies running up the road in their slippers and their aprons on. You've seen people running away from things where they're frightened, but to be running to something where you're frightened and what are we going to find here? It was really horrendous. Stuck with me there. I think about it much, but a lot of laughs, thank goodness.
Plenty of laughs.
We need laughs, aye.
We need laughs.